Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to Embody Your Soul Mission. I'm your host, Ryan. Today, I have a special guest, Wendy Kennedy. I came across her work some years ago when I was going through the dark night of my soul, really looking for the meaning and purpose of my life. And I have since followed her work, and I often find comfort and solace in listening to her teaching. And I was in her membership group as well, receiving support every month. And that has helped me greatly. And that's why I am very excited when Wendy said yes, she's happy to be part of this retreat. I was really so excited. So I really hope you get to enjoy the conversation today. And welcome, Wendy.
Oh, thank you. It's so beautiful to be here. I'm very, very deeply honored.
Yeah, so I know you are a channel, you are intuitive, you are an empath, and I also have learned a lot from you. So I wanted to start our conversation by asking you, what do you perceive is your current soul mission at this time of your life?
If you'd asked me 25 years ago, I never dreamed that this would be what I was doing. But I think it's bringing in galactic wisdom for a very earthly life, because I know sometimes we can get channeled information and it's a nice story, but what do we do with it? So, my kind of take on that and what I'm here to do in terms of bringing in information from my guides is make it really accessible, really practical, so that people can take that information and use it to improve their lives so they can have happier, healthier, more joy-filled lives, which I think all of us want.
Yeah. And I especially love you said, a galactic wisdom for an earthly human life, because that's really what we need right now. And I'm curious that what has your path to become a channel? What was it like, and what was the biggest challenge you encountered?
Oh, gosh. Well, I've been working with the guides for 27 years, I think now. But, I didn't have a terribly remarkable childhood in a sense of, I was seeing beings left and right. I mean, looking back now, I think I realized that I was sensitive, but at the time there was nothing remarkable that I noticed. And then, I went through college, and at the time, it was the late 80s, early 90s. And I was exposed to yoga and personal development and things that you wouldn't normally be exposed to. I grew up in Kansas, so it wasn't something that was just mainstream. It was kind of out there. So by working and studying acting, what motivates you, what drives you, or what drives the character, it was such an interesting way for me to kind of develop some skills that I would use later on in life. What drives all of us? What's the human desire? What are our fears? What are our hopes? What are our dreams? And so I had some experiences then of past life stuff coming up. Again, didn't really realize that's what was happening until I was able to look back at it later. And then, I was exposed to channeling. I had heard the word, and I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know anybody who did it. I just knew it was something that I was supposed to be doing. And so I started doing some research on that. Before that, I was living in an old apartment in Chicago, and I started having these visions, and I didn't really know what they were. And so I started doing some research on the building. And as it turns out, again, it was a past life that was showing up for me. And then as I was going through that, I came across the channeling, and I was like, okay, I know I'm supposed to do this. And I can remember saying to friends, I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like I'm supposed to do this. And I had very supportive friends. They were like, well, that's great. And if you're able to do it, I'm the first one in line. I'll be happy if you want to practice on me, or with me. And so I tried for a while, and I would have very visceral responses. My eyes would flutter and water, and I'd feel tingling in my hands and my legs, but I couldn't get the words out. I was trying to channel verbally. And so in the meantime, I did a lot of work on myself. I studied meditation and did all kinds of things. And over the course of probably about 9 months, I would come back to it. I put it aside. I come back to it. And one day I sat down and I knew I was supposed to have pen and paper. And so I started doing automatic writing. And it just kind of went from there. I worked with a lot of angelic beings, my own guides, beings from different star systems. And probably about another 9 months, the Pleiadian Collective came in. So they are my main guides. They're a group of about 2,500 beings of light from the Pleiades star system. They don't have physical form. And they work with me when I work with the public. And they actually work with tone and sound, which is why they were waiting up until that point when I was ready to start channeling verbally. So one day I knew I was supposed to put the pen down and just allow the energy to come in. And that's when the guides started coming in, the Pleiadians. So it's kind of developed from there. I would do it on the side for friends, and I would do it. I was starting to do it as a business to take some money. And, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my life. And I just kept with it. And in 2003, I decided it was time for me to kind of step into this more fully. I, at the time, was working in a job that I really didn't care for. And I thought, this is not what I want to do with my life. This does not make me happy. I'm stressed out. And so I resigned, and I, went home kind of to regroup, to spend some time with my family. And I thought, this really is what I want to do. We'll see how it goes. And so it just kind of went from there. It evolved from there. For me, it wasn't one of those things that was, I'm going to completely pull the rug out from under myself. I still worked on the side, did side jobs while I got that up and running. And it was a lot harder then because, we don't have the internet. We don't have ways of reaching people that we do now. I had to go and do expos and a lot of in-person stuff. And so it was a journey, and I never expected to be doing this 27 years later, and especially not with the language of light. I speak the language of light, and the guides also give me symbols, which they've termed galactic light codes. And these symbols represent the language of light. And that is, that's something that I did at the very beginning when I started channeling, but I didn't know how important it would be. It was probably about 19 years later. So, sometimes we don't know what the universe has in store for us. We just have to keep walking through the process. So that's kind of the long version.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, because obviously back in the 80s, 90s, people were more closed compared to now. It's almost like channeling and light language is much more accepted and more seen in the community. I wonder what kept you going, like, to step after step after step. What supported you?
It just was a drive. There just was a calling, and it felt good. I guess it's one way to say it. It felt right. And sure, stuff would come up. I would get nervous or worried, or certainly persecution would come up. And that was something that I had to deal with. I'm still dealing with it at some level, because persecution is so deeply ingrained in our history in terms of using our psychic abilities. But also, I think right now on the planet, everybody's feeling persecuted when you hold a different belief than somebody else. I mean, everybody is so, I won't say everybody, maybe that's not the right thing to say, the right way to say it, but a lot of people have no filter. They don't feel heard. And so they feel like it's okay just to spew whatever they think and take things out on other people. If you look at social media, some of it's heartbreaking to see some of the comments. But we're all kind of going through that energy, trying to integrate it, to let go of our judgments and to let go of our fears. And that was something that I had to work with, but it felt so right. I think I dealt with the fears and just kept walking. And I was very lucky early on. I met two women, and they had both kind of been doing work that was slightly different than the channeling, but we started channeling together. And so I had a small group to work with, and it was such a great way for me to get confirmation about the information that I was getting intuitively or that I was channeling. Somebody else could channel, somebody was asking the question, and the odd man out could listen, and you would get the same thing, the same information. So it was a quick way to get confirmation that what you were getting was accurate. And, that was such a gift and a blessing. And I think that made it so much easier for me in terms of having that friendship, that group, that support system to kind of normalize it in a way. We were more interested in, sitting around and channeling as opposed to going out to a bar and drinking a lot, or, which you would do in your mid-20s. So it helped me a lot, I think, to keep stepping forward.
Yeah, to have the like-minded people who genuinely are there for each other for the growth, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we get together almost every day it was probably for almost 2 years, just because it was so much fun and we loved it. And we love spending time with each other. And we challenged the way that we think and perceive things. So, and interestingly enough, we all kind of came from a very similar background and a similar training. And I think we were all pursuing performance. And that was, like I said, it was kind of a gateway to that. It was just kind of a natural progression in terms of exploring what drives the human desire. And it was a very interesting time, because there were not a lot of people out there who channeled. And so it was a little more unusual, so to speak. I think Barbara Marciniak was out there already, and Jane Roberts was out there with her Seth material, but they were just starting to come out. People were just starting to bring work out in a bigger way then.
So how have you ever thought of why, like, more and more people are opening up to the channeling gifts at this time?
I think it's kind of a natural progression. I think we all have access to communicate with beings in other realms and dimensions, to read the Akashic records, to access information about your past lives, to access source energy. And, it really is not a unique gift in the way that there are only a few people who can do it. The guides always say it's like somebody who is a master at the piano. There are a lot of people who can play the piano. Is everyone going to go out and be a concert pianist? No, but there are a lot of people who will do it for joy and love and as creative expression. And there are lots of ways to channel. Any sort of creative endeavor really is channeling. And that's kind of how I define it. It's bringing in frequency and putting it into a recognizable form. So whether that is drawing or painting or writing or speaking, it's all the same thing. It's just, how do we process and interpret that in this version of reality? And as we are letting go of more and more of our fear programs, I think it's kind of the natural progression. We are opening up to higher and higher frequencies. And so that just happens naturally.
And I'm very curious, how do you feel like, if you look back, how has your gift of channeling supported you in your own personal journey?
It's interesting. I think I've always got a built-in, sounding board. My guides will always give me their opinion on something. And the one thing that they have said from the get-go is that, their advice is not the end all and be all. It's like asking a friend for advice. Sometimes you get good advice, sometimes not so much. So you always have to weigh that with what you're feeling. And so they taught me that. And so I, if I don't know what's going on, I'm looking for a little insight, I'll go and ask them, and then I'll kind of check in with myself as well to see how that weighs, how that sits with me. Because, they are non-physical beings. And, there are things that happen to us in physical form. There are challenges that we experience because of our belief systems, our perceptions of lack and limitation that they know we have, but it's very different knowing it and living it. And so, they honor that. And that's why they say, check in with yourself just to make sure that this resonates with you. And if it doesn't, let it go.
I love that. I love that, because I think I have seen some people made decision completely based on what their guides told them, and I know, I mean, there's no judgment. So I think it's just different way of being and coexistence of how to live your life. And for me, I often do not listen to the advice from my guide, so I get to make my own mistake and come back like, okay, I hear you. So I guess that's
just it. Yeah, if it's important, it'll come around again, and we'll say, okay, well, now I'll look at it. But maybe at the time it wasn't the appropriate thing for you to do, or you needed to learn that way. And that's the one thing the guides also are very upfront about. They say, sometimes we give you information to get you where you need to go. So is it the absolute truth? Maybe not. Yeah. But it is what you need in the moment. So that's also a piece of it. So, and I had some experiences early on with some beings that someone else was channeling, and I kind of learned the hard way. They said, go do this. And I said, okay. It was something like, go to the refrigerator and grab a vegetable out of the fridge. And they said, well, why did you do that? I was like, well, you told me to. And they said, well, why? It's kind of teaching me discernment. I hated it. I hated that lesson, and I was angry. I felt manipulated, but I never forgot that. And, the guides, again, that's why they always say, do you want to do it? Does it resonate with you? And if it doesn't, don't do it. Really simple.
Yeah. I feel for me, or maybe some of the people I spoke to, is that we all are so afraid to miss the bus or miss what we are here to do. Like if we don't do certain instruction, then we are just gonna be lost,
Yeah. And I think we give up our power. And that's the thing that the guides really, in the work that I do, they focus on, is claiming your power again. And when you really are standing in your power, you'll know very clearly whether something is in alignment with you or not, and you're not going to miss the boat. It's kind of impossible to miss the boat. The guides also talk a lot about time and the nature and the construct of time, and we're exactly where we need to be. And if we were meant to be someplace else, we would be someplace else. So all things happen and all things unfold in divine right timing and in the divine right way. And if you fear that you're missing something, don't worry, it's coming back. And this is what happens with our limitations, with our limiting beliefs. If we don't pay attention, we keep getting that signal louder and louder and louder until we finally pay attention. We create some sort of dramatic event to get our attention so we can make that shift.
So for your own personal experience, what do you feel, what is the most rewarding part of your work?
There's a lot that's rewarding about it, just to see the change in other people, how the information that I share through the guides, how that can help them to transform. I think that really is, well, it's the point and the reward, I suppose. Yeah, most definitely.
And because then is there a time, I don't know why I'm going this direction, but I'm just become curious about, like, where there comes a time that you don't know, that you get to choose what you wish to create.
It's definitely a co-creation with the guides. Yeah, it's not like, hey, Wendy, you need to go create this now. I'm just like, okay. A lot of times what gets created is stuff that I'm working on. And I think this and personally, and I think this happens for a lot of healers and a lot of people who work with others, you will process through your stuff. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to the other side, then people who are a few steps behind you show up so that you can help them. So a lot of times I might experience something a month or two in advance, and then, oh, look, now it's time to hold the space for everybody. And I do notice this when the collective is going through a lot of issues. I'll experience it just a little bit before, so I have a chance to process through some of that so I can hold space for everybody else while they're going through it.
Yeah. And so in that case, so what are your practice to really bring yourself back?
They're simple. Really simple, and it doesn't take a lot of time. I was feeling out of sorts this morning, so I went and sat outside. And I pulled out my crystals. I do a lot of work with crystals, so I open the drawers and I see who's in there, and I said, who wants to come and play, basically. And then I take the ones that resonate, the ones that kind of shine to me and are like, oh, me. Those are the ones that I need in my field. And, it's about coming back to this heart-centered space. The guides give a lot of tools to do that. One of them is looking at images that put a smile on your face, and pictures of like baby animals, or a location that just makes you happy. And I have a folder on my phone that's called Smile. And so I've collected all these images that I can pull out. And then also music, if there's music that I know can transport me. If one thing isn't working, then, I can use one of the other tools. And meditation, breath work, those kinds of things. I also do those practices to help me. And there are times where I don't want to do any practice. And I think that is something that people beat themselves up about. Like, why am I here? Why am I in this low space? Sometimes I don't feel like, sitting and meditating. I'm just not there. So I will give myself permission to be wherever I am. And then I'll get bored usually. And then I'll do what I know I need to do, whether that's to go and meditate, whether that's to journal, whether that's just to visualize, get outside. Eventually I'll get there, but I give myself permission to be wherever I am.
Yeah. I think that's one very important piece that, we somehow were conditioned to just wanting to feel the good, the upliftment and the joy and when we feel down or depressed, we just feel like there's something wrong with us. And why am I feeling like this? Especially, I think I also hear that a lot of people, I remember I used to think I should be grateful. How come I'm not feeling happy, or how come I'm not feeling good? And I think that is really also a space where we get to be compassionate with ourselves and in acceptance, right?
Yeah. And there are a couple of things that are kind of sparking to mind for that. So I think it's sometimes easy in that case to say, well, I should be grateful. I have so much over here, or look at that person, they're having a horrible time over there, and mine's a minor thing. But that's all perception. So you might look at somebody's situation from the outside and say, well, that's not a big deal. But to them, it can be a huge deal. And there can be lots of lifetimes of that energy that have built up, or lots of things from their childhood that might have built up. And you just don't know looking from the outside. And so, yes, it's giving yourself or extending to yourself a little bit of grace in that area. And, talking about tools and what I do, this is one of the tools that the guides give. And it is one that I work with quite a bit. And that is being with my emotions. So if I want to move out of a space, I have to give myself permission to be in the space. So if I'm angry, then I just have to sit and observe the anger. Because when we don't like it, or we don't want to feel it, we want to stuff it down. And that just saves it for a later date to kind of explode. So you have to give yourself permission just to be with it and observe it without getting lost in the story that is attached to that emotion. or that feeling. And the guides say usually about 45 seconds is the most that most of us can sit there with it. If we take longer than that, then generally we're getting lost in the story. Now, there might be levels and layers to it that you have to keep clearing, but typically we can move out of it pretty quickly once we give ourselves permission just to observe it. Where is this sitting in my body? Oh, I'm feeling it in my lower back. Or, oh, I'm feeling it in my head. I'm starting to get a headache. Or what emotion is it? You can give it a label. Oh, this is frustration. Frustration feels different than annoyance or anger. And then what's the quality of thought? What are you thinking about? Is the mind active? Is it quiet? And just come back to this space of observance. And once we do that, then we can kind of move out of it.
Yeah, I remember last year I had a morning, something happened. I was in so much emotion. I think that was anger, feeling not appreciated and misunderstood. And I remember I was listening to your teaching and light language. I was just like blast. Well, I was sitting in that emotion, but it was just so hard to be in that emotion. So I felt like I also need some tools just by next to me, just to feel, to support me to going through this process of the emotion and allow myself to really figure out what exactly is triggering me and what am I thinking underneath all this anger and frustration. Yeah. So that was really helpful.
I do think also sometimes people get lost in the story of it. They keep going back to kind of find where something begins.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a big loop, because it can start in another lifetime, or it could be a program that is in the genetic line. So sometimes it's not about digging for the story. Sometimes that can be helpful, but sometimes it's just about having an awareness of what the frequency is, being present with it, and then moving to what you want instead. So that's kind of the second step in the process, to give yourself permission to feel. So if I'm feeling frustrated, maybe when I'm done giving myself permission to feel that and it's kind of dissipated, I'm not feeling that anymore. It's kind of in making the new vibrational selection. I want to feel peaceful. So what would it feel like to be peaceful? You can say, I am peaceful, but that's when the inner critic gets a little busy and says, well, no, I'm not feeling really peaceful. I'm still really anxious because I have this and this to do. And my relationship over here with this person, there's stress. And so sometimes that statement can feel a little difficult to hold. So if you say, I wonder what it would feel like to be peaceful, and you allow that energy to start to move, the inner critic isn't threatened, because it thinks, oh, they're just playing in their imagination. But yet you start to emanate that frequency, and the universe doesn't know any difference to that. You're emanating the frequency. And so it is going to bring you opportunities that will reinforce that for you. So that's kind of the second step there, and that's an important step. So if you know that you are struggling in a particular area, kind of look at the opposite so that you can start focusing on being in that space. You don't have to know what caused it. You just have to know what frequency you want instead and start embodying that.
So this actually connects me to my next question, is that, so when we are, for example, our life right now is not exactly what we want it to be, and then we have this hopes and dreams that we wanted to, maybe move to a new place or to have a certain job or relationship or business or money or all that. What would you, and what the guide would say to really, how do we move graciously into that space?
Well, again, it's knowing that all things happen in divine right timing and in the divine right way. So they usually suggest kind of creating a list for yourself of the qualities that what you want has. So if it's a new job, what are the qualities in that job? Maybe you're somebody who likes to just work 9 to 5. You don't have to think about anything else when the day is over. And maybe you need it really structured. You are somebody who feels safe when things are structured. And, maybe you're a good numbers person. So put that on the list. Maybe you're just the opposite. Maybe you're somebody who needs flexibility. You want to work for yourself. You are more creative in the evening. Whatever it is, go ahead and put that on the list, and then imagine what it would feel like to step into that. There is one thing that the guides are very adamant about, and you don't hear it talked a lot about in the process of manifestation. And it has to do with visualization. You can have an idea of what you want, but don't be attached to it, because we're in this period in which the things that we want to create, we've never created before. They're unique, and we may not have an external example of what that looks like. And when we are laser focused on what it's supposed to look like, we can miss a lot of opportunities to get the same vibrational thing, just in a different physical form. Sometimes, you know, the universe can create things for us. We can have opportunities that we could not have dreamt of, you know, if we are limiting, thinking, oh, I can only do it over here in this way. There's this more amazing opportunity over here that we'll miss. So that's an important piece as well. You can visualize it, you can see it, just don't be attached to whether it comes that way or not.
Okay, so don't be attached. It's just to, how do we, I'm going to ask a silly question. Like, okay, I know I'm not attached to it. Is that just a knowing that, okay, I do not attach to it, but I wanted to experience something like this?
Okay, so what is an example? Well, you know what? I think I might let the guides come in on this one. Because I think if we maybe do a process as an example of what you want to create, then maybe people can take little bits and pieces from that for what it is that they want to create. So I'm going to get out of the way and let the Pleiadian Collective come in. Yes, hello, dears. This is the 9th Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you. So we're always very happy to talk about the process of manifestation and really living your purpose. So before we get into that, we just want to let you know that in terms of your purpose here on Earth, it is expressing as much love, as much unconditional energy as possible. That is everyone's true mission. And there are lots of ways for you to do that. There are lots of ways for you to create that are unique to your skill sets as a personality and also as a soul, all of the lessons that you've learned over many, many, many lifetimes. So as you are going here, know that as you are dealing with friends, or as you are dealing with strangers on the street, every moment is an opportunity for you to live your mission. It is an opportunity for you to show up in the most unconditional space possible. Now, what you get reflected back to you as your reality that brings up fear, anxiety, worry, stress, that's showing you what is not in alignment with that mission of expression of unconditional love. It's where your conditions are. And that's where you get to do your quote unquote work. That's where you get to heal. That's where you get to release your fears, your judgments about a choice or a condition or a behavior. All right. Now, as you're going, as Wendy said, you can put together a list of the things that you want to create, but being unattached means that you also acknowledge that exactly where you are is perfect. So what's showing up for you in your life right now? So if you are finding that you want to create a new job, and that new job requires you to be in a position where you're a good communicator, where you have a lot of people reporting to you, that there are a lot of people who are exposed to the work that you are doing and creating. And you might find that in your personal life, you're struggling in a relationship. Yeah. And you feel like the communication isn't great. And you're being asked to be a better communicator in that relationship. As you deal with it at that level, it will heal the energy or the limiting programs that you carry about communication in every single area of your life. So let's say if I speak my truth, then people aren't going to like me. I'm not going to be accepted. So as you heal that in that personal relationship, you'll find that you are more accepted, that you feel that you can speak your truth in the business setting. All right. Sometimes you all want big dreams as well. And maybe if, let's say you're a performer, or you want to be a speaker on stage, or you want to be a writer, you want lots and lots of people to see you, and you have not worked on personal boundaries, you're not going to get that thing that you're asking for until you work on personal boundaries. The universe says, well, you know, we could bring it to you here, but if we brought it and you did not have personal boundaries that were healthy, you'd be a heap on the floor. There'd be too much energy coming at you and you wouldn't know how to process it. So what shows up in your life? Opportunities for you to have better boundaries so that you can elevate yourself to be a matching frequency for what it is that you are asking for. So it is a step process. And sometimes you might have an idea of, oh, you know, this is the way I'm supposed to go. This is going to be my life's mission. And you'll step into it. You'll have an experience. You'll learn something, but then it feels flat. It may be that there was simply a skill, a gift, or an ability that you were meant to learn from having that experience. And that's all it was ever meant to be. But you felt called to do it in the moment because it was in alignment with your soul, with your energy. And so you step forward. Every moment brings you the opportunity to decide whether you want to remain in a frequency or you want to make a course correction and head in a new direction. And sometimes you might go through 3 or 4 different things that you think in the initial moment, oh, well, maybe this is my calling. No, it's just a skill you're picking up. And you just keep following that path. And eventually you are going to find that you will discover, you will step into an opportunity that will allow you to use your gifts to the greatest of their abilities. But you had to perhaps clear out some things before as you're walking through the process. All right. Did that help answer your question there? You know, we can do a process, but we think it's probably pretty self-evident. But if there's something you want to know more about, we're happy to talk about it.
Yeah, I really love what you brought through about it's just step into what we are being called to, and without attachment that it is the end result or that, you know, our soul mission for the rest of our life. How do we allow ourselves to be just inspired and really I feel like more energized in the real day-to-day life?
It's about coming back to the present moment, all of it. And we want to say one other thing before we come back to talking about the present, but that has to do with how you define yourselves and what you think of as being successful. You have been socially engineered, socially conditioned to think that there are only a few things, a few status defining things that will make you, quote unquote, a success or happy. So if I have a certain amount of money, or if I look a certain way, or I have a certain kind of relationship, it's different for each and every one of you, but there is something that you will say, oh, well, when I reach this level, then I'll be enough. This is, as we said, social engineering and social conditioning. This will always keep you disconnected from your true self. Where we are in the 9th dimension, we perceive our success as how much love are we expressing in any given moment. That is how we define our success. So for you, you may choose to use this as the definition. And if that is the case, you're going to find that life gets a lot easier at that point because you were always enough, because you're being unconditional with yourself. All right. So your question again.
How do we stay inspired, you know, even when everything's happening and sometimes we got pulled away here and there? energetically, emotionally.
Yeah, so it's through repetition. It's through coming back to the present moment. Because when you are present in the moment, you are heart-centered. When you are heart-centered, you are present in the moment. They are one and the same. The fastest way for you to get there is to simply think of something that makes you smile. That's it. So all who are watching, we would invite them in this moment, think of something that makes you smile. And as you're breathing in and out and thinking of this thing, notice how you feel in your body. For most of you, you will notice that there is a shift in frequency. Some of you, if you're feeling particularly blue or down, you might notice that you get a slight lift, but you're not really feeling expanded or uplifted or tingly or any of those things. It's a step process. You just have to keep coming back to this space to allow more source light energy to come in. When you are present in the moment and in your heart-centered space, you run the full force of source energy through you. When you are operating from programs of lack, limitation, and separation, which is what the ego is thinking about the past, it's reminiscing, or it's thinking about the future, wanting to control it. Those are now moments that you are not standing on. You're standing here in this now moment. You're trying to send energy off to a now moment you're not standing on. But there is judgment involved. The reason why you are trying to project to the future is because you want to control it, because you think there is a potential for a bad outcome and you don't want to be hurt. You fear, you have a fear program running, or in the past, you are holding on to judgment that something was not good, or it was bad, it was wrong, it should have been different. There's some sort of judgment that you're holding on to. The moment that you make something good, bad, right, or wrong, you create separation. Both good and bad, as it were, are part of source energy. They are two sides of the same coin. And the moment you dislike something, hold a judgment about something, you want to make it separate from you. Ooh, that thing over there, I don't want that. And even when you think, oh, well, I want this really good thing, pay attention, because sometimes what is driving you underneath is that you want the good thing to avoid the bad thing. If you are unattached, you're saying, ooh, this is an interesting frequency. Let's go explore that. I'm curious, what would that be like? That's a neutral stance. And that's where you want to find yourself, is in this neutral stance of curiosity and adventure. There's no attachment to it. All right. It's subtle, but there is a difference, and it will make a big difference in what you create, what you manifest for yourself. So as you keep coming back to this present moment, you have a greater awareness of what you need to know or do in order to put yourself into alignment with that higher thing that you want to ask, what you ask for. What is your purpose, as it were? You know, how can you express the greatest amount of love and unconditional energy possible? And you will be guided to situations and scenarios that will afford you the opportunity to elevate your frequency, should it be needed, or to put you in alignment so that you can perceive opportunities that are available in front of you, that are in resonance with you. Because if you're operating out of fear, the fear is down here, the thing you want is up here. Those are running parallel and they do not intersect. So in order to get what you want, you have to elevate your frequency to be in alignment so that you can experience it, you can perceive it.
Yeah, beautiful. So P, I have a question about the nature. I know many people are really passionate and have big heart for the earth, the nature, the environment. And I also feel like there are a lot of people actually feel the calling to support the earth, the nature. And how do we be, or what can we do when we, you know, in the reality, we see the fire, the destruction, and the negative news that has been happening? That is, what would you suggest us do?
So again, start with yourself, making sure that you are centered, that you are present, that you are grounded. You have to be grounded. Oftentimes those who are drawn to channels and higher information tend to want to escape the heavy energy of the earth and the pain and the struggle that you might feel in the collective consciousness. But it is absolutely vital that you ground. You came here to be embodied. So you've got to connect not only to the stellar energy, but you've also got to connect to earthly energy. So for those of you who are wanting to work with Mother Earth herself, first you must work on yourself. She is a reflection of the collective energy. So if you want to change Mother Earth and help to make her more vital, to support her, you have to work with yourself. Mother Earth will continue on whether the human species decides to or not. You can damage her to such a point that you will not be able to have food or clean water or things that you need to survive. And at that point, the species dies off, and then she will start to thrive again. So, you know, it really is about how can you live together. Now, when it comes to Mother Nature and the Earth, there's a lot that is, again, social engineering that is going on right now. A lot of the changes in the climate are because of the sector of space that Earth and your entire solar system are moving through. So many of the planets are experiencing shifts in their environment. The carbon footprint, that is a whole nother agenda. And that is specifically an agenda. It is meant to control the collective consciousness. So when we talk about Earth and cleaning up Earth, it's not about carbon. It's about looking at the chemicals that you're putting into your water, into your food, into your air, and cleaning those things up. But look at who is benefiting from some of the programs that they are trying to push through in terms of green energy. Some of it is not very green at all. Some of it is not sustainable. And there's a lot that needs to be looked at in terms of those areas. There's a lot of manipulation that is happening right now. In the future, as it were, when we look back at this time, we call this frequency wars that you're going through right now. This period is called the frequency wars, because there are beings who are vying for the manipulation of your thoughts, your emotions, and your physical bodies. And so this is why it is so important for you to keep coming back to the present moment, to decide how you want to be, how you want to exist in the world, because this is an incredibly fertile time on your planet. Your ability to create and manifest what you want is very, very high because of the sector of space that you are moving through. But when you get the collective focused on the negativity is what gets manifest, and the few at the top can stay in control. But when you all start to decide that you want to live from your heart centers, that you want to live your mission, as it were, you are unstoppable. You are owning your power, and you will create a new reality for yourself and for the collective. And this is the time that you are in right now. So decide how you want to feel. How do you want to show up? And do not be defined by others' limitations. Do not be defined by the narrative or the story that the economy is not great, or you can't do this because of this limitation over here. And that we're talking about what's happening in the collective that you are seeing at the governmental levels, at the institutional levels, but also in terms of family programs. You know, maybe being a creative artist is not the safest choice to your family. Your family wants you to be safe, and that means getting that 9-to-5 job. But it is important that you live from your heart, and that you follow that passion, because those of you who are drawn to this summit are the way showers. You are the ones who are going to be the living example that others can then follow to say, oh, them, they're light. I want some of that. They look very happy over there. What are they doing? All right, they get very curious. And, you know, that really is the only way that you can change others, as it were. You can't physically adjust them, but you can be the living light. You can be the living example that they say, oh, I forgot I can be this way. And so they will make changes. All right. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, it does. It does. So I think given the time, I really appreciate your sharing this message and this guidance and wisdom. Do you have anything as a last message before we invite Wendy back?
Well, we would love to do a language of light attunement if you'd like.
Yeah, please, please.
So for those who are unfamiliar, the language of light is Source's language. It's comprised of light, sound, sacred geometry, and cosmic information. And as you experience it, it bypasses the language centers of the brain and it speaks directly to you, the divine being of light, having this physical experience. And it helps you to find frequency. So think about someone asking you to sing the note of C. Most people don't have perfect pitch. It can be very difficult to find that note, but if they hear that note played on an instrument, if somebody plays the C on the piano, then you say, oh, that note, not a problem, I can sing it. And so it is with the language of light. As you are experiencing it, it is reminding you of your true nature, and it helps you to elevate your own resonance to that frequency. So what we offer you today is an activation to help you to open up into your innate wisdom as to what is the next step for you. What is it that you want to create? So it's helping you to get clarity and divine inspiration. So as you're in that heart-centered space, you're going to get hits, you're going to get ideas about what it is that you want to create as your life's mission. Now, what will happen is you'll get that hit or inspiration, and then you'll go back to the ego mind and start to pull it apart and say all the reasons to yourself as to why you cannot do that. It's not safe. I don't know enough. I'm not enough. I don't have the resources. You'll make up all kinds of excuses. But in the moment when you get that hit or that inspiration, it's very clear. The problem is that you are not in a practice to recognize that the subtle energy of that experience is very different than what happens from your imagination or wishful thinking or the ego programs. The more you practice, the more you keep coming back to this heart-centered space, the more you're going to recognize of, oh, every time I followed that, that's been my divine inspiration. That has been me speaking to myself. And when I've done that, great things have happened. But that recognition comes through practice and experience. All right. So that being said, there's nothing that you need to know or do. Just relax, take a nice deep breath, and we'll see where we go. Ora minimirkata barajukata bitkatai ira ana minimirkata barajukati titi ana are minimirkata ara minimirkata bitkata bara minimirkata hasa anduko hi muna mirkata tata ara minimirkata barajukati bitkata baraja andu ora minimirkata andu rere barajudo ora mana ada al ora mirjita takatai hando ora mirjita andu rere barajukata bitkata barajukati hisa ata ara minimirkata barajukata ta anda ora mirjukati rjukata hasa anda ara minimirkata barajukati hita anla ora ai do ora marathana Hisara ore e sanana katehisha hasha okoto ora amahanka ala ara I menehisa no noe ida rabberibijukate. Take another nice deep breath. We've got one more short round. All right, take another nice deep breath. So dear ones, we'll go ahead and we will leave you here. Feel free to call on us directly. You don't need Wendy. Just ground yourself, heart center yourself, ask your question and listen. And until we hear from you, we are around, we are watching, we are waiting, and we are sending many well wishes.
That was so good.
So that's the Pleiadian Collective.
Yeah, I love them. They are so practical and down to earth and simple, profound.
Well, you know, that is the thing. Sometimes we make things so difficult. And with the guides, they always say back to basics, back to the really simple things. And when we just take small, simple little steps, we'll look back and we'll see that we've actually traveled quite a distance. And I think even with the idea of having a life's mission, it can feel overwhelming to people. So it's just about taking one small step every single day.
Absolutely. And I remember the joy you brought through when you say you were practicing in your small group, you know, you meet up. And I feel that is the energy that we wish to embody and practice when we are creating or developing our skills and mission.
Yeah. And, there are lots of people around you who share your belief systems, but I think because so many of us have felt afraid to talk about it or express our true thoughts or feelings, that we don't recognize that there are loads of people that are standing right next to us who share our belief systems. And, you're creating this beautiful community. And, it's not even so much that our neighbor next door has to hold that belief system, but there are those who might be on the other side of the world that we can also connect with. So
Mm.
it's very beautiful. And, again, I want to thank you for what you're creating.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you because you are part of my my journey, a big part of my journey. I want to also ask you about, you want to share a little bit about your community, your member, um, Galactic Light Language Community.
Yeah. So we're coming up on our 5th year anniversary, which is just
Oh,
crazy to me. So in September, it will be 5 years. So it's called Galactic Light Code Monthly.
okay.
So every month, depending on what the group needs, the guides will focus in on a specific topic. And then they'll channel a bit. It's a pre-recorded video. They'll talk about the subject, and then they do an activation like the one that you just heard. And then they will also do the written form in an image. And so as you're looking at the image, you're also feeling all the energy. They give affirmations to support that. And you're working and putting yourself.
I'm not sure if I have that on my screensaver.
So I'm not sure what I have on mine at the moment, but it's always one of the codes. So we do this every month, and then we meet mid-month, and we just kind of see what's coming up for the group and how can we support the group with the code. So it's pretty amazing to me. It seems like a very simple thing, very innocuous, but it's really a piece of spiritual technology, and it can be quite transformative.
Yeah, I think also when we get together and then we get to support each other, I think even energetically, right? Like the message, the code you brought through is really also based on the need of the group. So I feel it makes it easier. And when we know that there are someone who are going through similar challenges, and then people are also open to support, I feel like many people are genuinely very loving. It just do not have the right container or space to share that love and care.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. Most definitely. And I think, like you said, when you recognize that there are people around you who are going through the same thing, it kind of gives us a sense of peace and knowing that we're not alone. And, when we do our group sessions mid-month, when we do our sessions for Galactic Light Code Monthly, the same kinds of questions come up, and we have repeated patterns. And it's fascinating to me, even after 5 years, just to see, we've got our focus for the month, but then there are all these little side issues that absolutely everybody's working on. There's definitely a theme every month. So know that you're not alone wherever you are. You are absolutely not alone.
Yeah, and I feel it has become never more important to really find a community you feel connected to, you feel comfortable with, and just to allow yourself to be supported, right? Like I feel like moving forward, we are stepping into collaboration, like to support each other and co-create. And really the lone wolf and the suffering along, struggling along is no longer, well, it's an option. I think it's a choice. We don't have to take that choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel like you have a last message you wanted to share?
I see you. I think, so often we feel like we're isolated, we're alone, but everybody has something to share. If you don't know what that is just yet, that's okay. And it always makes me think of what the guide said about what our true mission is for absolutely everybody. It's just to be as unconditional and as loving as we possibly can. And that it sounds kind of cheesy, but as we start to embody that and start to do that in small ways, we can open up brand new worlds to ourselves of potential and possibility. And I mean that at the personal level as well as at the collective level. So, everybody is a spark of the divine. Everybody has the potential to shift and change and has an impact. And don't underestimate the power of just connecting with one single person, what that might have. Sometimes we think that we've got to, write that bestseller, or we've got to be on that big stage and change millions of lives, but you don't know how that one small thing can have a massive cascade effect through a ripple through the planet. So, just know that you're pretty remarkable exactly as you are.
Okay, we open our heart and receive that. Thank you so much, Wendy. Oh, I get back to you. Yes, you are pretty remarkable. Exactly where you are.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm so happy Pete came through. I would feel like a child having the marshmallow in the playground. I don't know why, but I'm just very happy to be in your energy field as well. So thank you so much for sharing your time, your energy, your wisdom, and your gifts. It's really very, very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, so for those of you who are watching, we hope you enjoy our conversation today. We hope you feel the frequency and also the love, the guides, the peace, and allow yourself to take in the words, the wisdom, the simple yet profound wisdom that Wendy and the peace shared, and enjoy each step of your journey and just be okay with where you are. Don't compare and don't let other people's limitation stop you. I think that's definitely one of my biggest takeaways for today. So enjoy your life, being human on the beautiful earth, and enjoy the company with your loved ones, and or maybe in the beautiful nature. And we will see you again soon. So bye for now, everyone. Bye.